Welcome to the Doctor's J&J podcast. Good to have you.
We're back.
We are back. This one is a fun conversation. It's on difficult conversations. 2 crowns with difficult conversations.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is definitely a challenging piece of every relationship, is how to have difficult conversations. With 2 crowns, the concept is both of you coming with your power, both of you coming with respect, both of you coming with, most importantly, the same intention. The intention that you need to have that's the same as that you both walk away with a mutual understanding and respect. You may not be able to have it solved. John Gottman talks about a relationship expert. I think about 60% of all conflicts are unresolvable.
Something like that.
That's terrifying.
He also really highly promotes soft startups.
He does promote soft startups. This is something, though, we're just talking about earlier too, with the importance of soft startups are great if you're heard. But if you're not heard, it's really difficult to keep doing soft startups. And this is where we typically encourage people to move to more of an assertive stance, to say, I really need to be heard. This is unacceptable. A lot of times I find that women struggle with asserting themselves and their message, and maybe they'll go to complaining or criticizing. But to say a clear, kind, assertive message can be very challenging for anybody. But this is something I do work quite a bit with women on, to make sure that they can get their voice heard and get it across to their partner. And when you're having difficult conversations, you have to know when to fluctuate between being kind, being assertive, and in rare instances with your partner, aggressive. I call it the 1, 2, 3. 1, kind. 2, assertive. 3, aggressive communication.
Yes. And if we can keep it in the kind category, ideal. But we are human. Mm-hmm. And full disclosure, we had to practice this difficult conversation model right before recording this.
Yes, we did.
So this is fresh off the press, let's say.
Yeah. And to follow up with what I was just saying, as far as just I call it the 1, 2, 3, the aggressive, obviously what typically is, we would like to reserve that for when there's aggressive behavior or communication where somebody maybe has to protect themselves or has to fight back. In your marriage, we would like to think that there is more opportunity to be assertive if need be, if you're not getting heard. If you're getting aggressive a lot with aggressive language, obviously aggressive behavior is not going to work. At the same time, we're well aware that that is happening in a lot of marriages, and that's something that wears people out. Obviously can be really dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. If things are flying around the room, not the best idea.
Yeah, but even the psychological and emotional safety of having really aggressive communication and name calling, things like that, that would make it really hostile for people to want to feel safe, to be able to let down.
For sure.
So it's actually really common for relationships to kind of get stuck in that aggressive mode of communication where you're both really struggling to be heard. And neither one of you feel powerful, and you start to resort to some behavior that maybe you did as a young child, and getting aggressive in your communication, name calling,
tantrums, basically.
Yeah. So we don't promote that. Obviously we don't promote aggressive communication. And at the same time, we're well aware that that does happen in conversation. Thus, our work that we specialize in with helping people to get along. So with difficult conversations, we want to talk a little bit today about setting intention when you have a difficult conversation. And that is to be able to have a win-win, have a mutual understanding, and hopefully be able to come away with some changes that improves the quality of life for both crowns, not just one, but both crowns. So if only one person is benefiting from the solution, it's not a 2-crown solution.
It's not a win-win.
Yeah, unless you've deferred to it and you're like going, hey, I'm going to let you do it this time because I got to do it last time, right? So then that would be mutual, right? So the concept of a difficult conversation is setting that intention, like, how can we keep this kind? How can we keep this assertive? How do we stay out of aggression in the communication, and we stay more in the area of kind and respectful?
Right. Which kind of leads me to, I'm going to insert this in there, is just this idea of ground rules.
Yeah, it's good.
And I think if you don't have ground rules set before a difficult conversation, it doesn't make it very safe. And, part of our little formula we're going to present today is going to have some of that. But obviously, like you said, name calling, doing dangerous activity, blocking, throwing things. One of the research says that sitting down, just the act of sitting down during a difficult conversation can lower the intensity by 60%. So that's a pretty easy thing to help. But also obviously not threatening the relationship every time you have a difficult conversation, and not including the kids or, a lot of things. So just basically having a conversation before the difficult conversation of saying, what are the ground rules that would make it, feel safe?
Yeah. The other thing that we really encourage people, and we really try to do ourselves, but are not always successful in, is the importance of not fighting when you're angry. If you can time out, calm yourself down, figure out what you feel, figure out what you need, that doesn't involve any blame or shame on your partner, where you get to be a part of the solution. Again, you keep your crown on, you straighten it, get back on your throne and figure out, what do I feel? What do I need? How can I make a difference in this? How do I want to respond to this behavior that might be less than kind? How do I want to come out of this better?
Right.
How do I respect myself? How do I respect the person? So in difficult conversations, setting that intention, having these ground rules, taking the time out, not fighting when you're angry. Anything else?
Yeah, I would just add to the whole angry. If you're flooded or angry, usually your heart rate is above 100. And your body starts going into survival mode, which means your hearing, your ability to hear goes down, your ability to see goes down, and all of your blood and energy is going to your vital organs. And so you're in this kind of fight or flight protective mode, which is not usually conducive to having a difficult conversation.
True. And what puts us into that fight or flight mode is typically our triggers, or maybe some unresolved trauma or some boundaries that get crossed. So knowing what your boundaries are, knowing what your triggers are, knowing when you need to take a time out, not when you need to change your partner, but when you need to take a time out. Like, this is getting too difficult for me. I'm starting to get under a lot of distress right now.
Right.
One of the things we'll do in the office when we have a couple is, and they get triggered. I just did this last week. And they both were getting upset and very emotional. And they both were actually kind of quiet. I'll have couples like that too, don't you? You get it where they get quiet. People sometimes go really internal. And then there's the ones that are really loud, and you can totally tell when they're flooded. But this particular couple got very quiet, and there's some tears starting to come up. They started turning away from each other, not looking at each other, breaking eye contact, kind of a shutting down, little teary, not listening to each other. And I said, hey, let's just take a minute. Just take a minute. It's okay. You both are okay. Nobody's wrong. I reassure. I help them each to reset themselves. But I said, let's just take some space to acknowledge that this is a difficult moment right now. I actually don't use a lot of words. I just say, find a nice spot in the room to look at, something pretty, take some deep breaths.
You help them to get grounded, basically, and to get unflooded.
Yeah, let the difficult emotion wash over you, and then move back into what is it that you need, because you may not have this with your partner, but you're definitely going to have it with your therapist. If it's Jake and I, but no,
of course,
any other great therapist too, will be validating the message. even if it doesn't sound right or we don't agree with it, is irrelevant. It's important to a person, and that's important to us. So we will help to validate the message and then teach the couple how to validate each other. Then the emotion starts to drop. Then we can move into relating and creating some kind of solution to be able to move forward.
Right. Yeah. And one more thing I'll say too about the timeout, because obviously when you're flooded, like Jenn just mentioned, where she helps couples in her office to time out, even if they didn't know they needed a timeout. But research says that human body needs at least 20 minutes to calm down, to lower your heart rate, to get to a more regulated state. So we always say minimum for timeouts is 20 minutes. The beauty of the timeout rule is there's time ins. And a lot of times couples struggle to take a timeout or to exit a conversation because they're afraid there's never going to be a time in.
Right.
But part of the agreement that you make as far as the ground rules is that if either one of us is flooded, and this is how you keep your two crowns on, is that we can call a timeout at any moment, and we know that we both are committed to time ins.
Yeah.
Now, let me just say a caveat to that. If it's past 10 o'clock at night, do not time in until the next day. If you're on the way to work, obviously you're not going to time in 20 minutes. So there's other situations where you can't time in 20 minutes, or is it not wise? But just make a commitment that says, okay, when we get home from work, we're going to revisit this. Most of the couples that I have do that, they're shocked at how de-escalated the conversation is, because they're like, what were we fighting about?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel as tense, and it just sets you up for so much more success.
Yeah. That's good.
Because, the other thing that I noticed too is this idea of the competing communication. If you're in that mode of we're competing and we're not hearing each other, it's just a recipe for disaster, because we're not connecting, we're competing.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of like a game of catch, where I'm throwing you the ball, and then you're batting it away, and you're throwing me a ball, and then I'm throwing you a ball. It's like nobody's ever catching each other.
Right.
That's not a game of catch. It's not happening.
Remember when we did that in one of our workshops?
Yeah.
Yeah, we literally had balls. I don't know if where's it, ping pong balls?
Ping pong.
Yeah, we had a bunch of ping pong balls up on stage, and it was really funny because we illustrated this conversation idea with throwing balls, and Jenn would throw a ball at me, and I would be throwing a ball at her at the same time. We wouldn't catch, or then she would throw 3 balls in a row. And, just this, and it was just so funny to see ping pong balls bouncing all over the stage.
Right. It just gives this illusion of such chaos, emotional chaos that can happen in a conversation, especially a difficult one where there's a lot of emotion. The other thing is couples that are really connected to each other, which is a lot of couples are really connected, whether it's good connection through conflict, through contempt, through love, whatever, but they're typically very connected. So the word on this is attuned. So couples typically are pretty attuned with one another, right? Emotionally, physically, sexually, you are, this is the most intimate relationship that you have.
Right.
So because of that, you are picking up on your nonverbals, or another word on this is the meta communication. So the nonverbals or the meta communication that is getting said, you're already listening to that before you even listen to the words that are coming out of your partner's mouth.
Well,
and then you're reacting to that.
Right. Which 93% of communication is nonverbal. So it just supports that.
But I think the more tuned you are, I see this immediately, is even with ourselves or couples that we work with, is they can already anticipate what their partner is going to say. They will say to me, "Oh, he's mad at you," before I even know it, because they completely read their body language.
Right.
Or she's not going to listen to you anymore. She's done listening. And they'll check in with each other and soothe each other because they are listening to their meta messages. So this is another piece that comes up a lot in difficult conversations. Sometimes what you can try to do sometimes is like just close your eyes. Don't look at your partner and just really concentrate on your message and what it is that you want to say. The other thing that we really recommend is write it. Write it out. Write it out in a journal or text it out and just say, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm needing. Of course, you can still do competing messages that way. But the concept is there's a sender and there's a receiver. That's a couple's dialogue, right?
Which is like playing catch.
Yeah, like playing catch. So the concept is send a message and then your partner receives it.
Right. Catch it.
Right. And what does catching it sound like or look like?
Well, catching it is obviously reflecting, right? Reflective listening is, comes from the idea of holding up a mirror, right? So that when your partner is sending you a message, you're reflecting that you've heard the message. Doesn't mean you're a parrot and you just like repeat word for word, but you're communicating that says, I caught you and I see that you threw me a blue softball. And now she knows like, oh, okay, I have caught her ball. I've identified what it looks like, what it is before I throw my yellow baseball.
Right. And it doesn't look like as you catch the blue softball, it doesn't sound like, is it baseball or softball?
I caught your blue softball.
Thank you. Softball is what I'd like for you to catch for me.
Of course. You probably like me to catch a yellow softball from you.
Better said. Yes.
So I kind of messed that up.
That's all right. But it's not me catching that ball and looking at it and saying, I don't think this should be blue. I don't think this should be a softball. Think this should be a baseball. It's not analyzing
Correct.
it. It's not judging it.
It's purely reflecting it.
It's saying, I receive this. I receive it. I might not like it. You might have thrown it kind of hard, but I receive it. I hear that this is what you're throwing to me.
Right.
And now I'm going to throw that back. And I'm going to let you know, hey, I received it. I heard it. Thank you. Thanks for giving me that message. Now I got a message I need to send to you. So where's my...
Right. Which kind of goes back to the ground rules too, that if you do throw the softball at my face at 100 miles an hour, there is going to be boundaries.
Yes.
So
that's aggressive communication.
That's beyond aggressive communication. That's like
dangerous.
That's like abusive communication.
It is totally abusive. Absolutely.
So we're not saying that, no matter how they throw it and whatever, if they put spikes on the ball and throw it at you, like that, you just catch it and go, okay. There is boundaries, and it's okay to say timeout in that situation that says, hey, this is hostile, or this is crossing a boundary. Let's time out before, so we can come time in and actually throw messages back and forth that are safe. Absolutely.
Or maybe even involving a third party, like a therapist, to say, I can't hear her messages. They're just so mean. They're mean and they're harsh, and I think she has something really important to say, but I can't hear them.
Right.
Can you decipher these messages? Can you help me understand? And that's normal too. We deal with that quite a bit, and that is what I would call unresolved trauma. That people sometimes just don't have any awareness of how they're coming across, and it's coming out really hostile, and a lot of times the message that they're sending isn't meant for the person on the other side of them.
Right. Yeah. It might be meant for your mother
or an abuser or something. Right.
Yeah.
So you come out strong towards that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So competing communication is also something that is an effective. Collaborative communication creates that connection.
Right. And the other thing is empathy. We talk a lot about how that is the grease that kind of greases the gears in any conversation, that if you have empathy, and going back to Gottman, the guru of relationship research, he talks about this idea of positive sentiment override, which is another word for benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Assuming
the best. He calls it positive sentiment override as opposed to negative sentiment override. And, if you're coming into a difficult conversation with a negative sentiment override and with zero empathy, it's probably not going to go well.
Yeah. I think to be able to assume the best is good, but I will also say sometimes people are assuming the best when they shouldn't be. And that's what we call magical thinking.
True.
And that's, we know that that's happening because you've had the conversation, the difficult conversation, many times and in many ways. And the person is still showing up with the same behavior that is hurtful and crossing your boundaries. So this is where that is an exception that you have to be aware of, that, sometimes not being able to assume the best is always the best.
Assuming the best is not always the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not always the best.
That was smooth.
What am I trying to say? Response.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I hear that. I think that's wise to, just like not every communication that is thrown at you is safe. Just because, right? Just because you caught it, now you're bloody because it had spikes on it. Not good. So
right. So
I'm not going to assume the best if you throw me a spike softball
over and over again. If you do it a few times, and you said, "Hey, stop doing that," then the person goes, "I am so sorry. I had no idea I was doing that." Right.
Right.
So it becomes basically what I encourage couples is look at their behavior. If you've had the difficult conversation and then you have an understanding and the behavior has still not changed, we don't assume the best. We don't go into magical thinking, fantasy thinking. We have to get more assertive. We have to draw the boundaries, and we have to have some difficult conversations that probably involve some third parties and have some confrontation, some contracts, maybe some time apart. So that is definitely something that is needed when there is bad behavior that keeps going on.
Right. Yeah. We're not saying have difficult conversations with a partner that's being abusive or breaking the ground rules.
Right.
That's the whole point. But.
Yeah, we don't even do that. We don't even work with couples together if there's a lot of abusive communication and conflict.
Right.
Because it will continue to re-damage the individual to have them do that in front of now a witness, a therapist, and being quiet. So we will, even as the professionals, we say, hey, we're not going to even participate in damaging conversations that there's competing, you're not listening to each other. I had one couple that just kept arguing and arguing and arguing the whole time, and it was like they were just throwing spike balls and baseballs. I said,
they forget you're there almost.
I said, enough. This is not going to work. And we took some time out, and they both did some individual work with some different therapists. And I said, when you've done some work, and I get the report card from your current therapist that says you both have learned to self-regulate. We've talked about that, and be able to come back into a couple session. Then I would love to work with you. And you know what? I'm so proud of that couple. They did. They learned how to self-regulate. They learned how to calm themselves down so they could show up and have a collaborative, connecting conversation with their partner. Right. And they're doing amazing now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Our offices are right next to each other.
That's
and
true.
Sometimes we have to apologize to each other after one of those sessions because there's been some raised voices and yelling and profanity maybe. And we're like, sorry about that. A little disruptive. And sometimes couples just let it fly and they finally feel like they're in a safe environment. But
before we go to our technique that we want to share today, the last thing I want to say on this is the stress responses, because there's the fighters and then there's the flighters. And you're talking about that. Sometimes we hear the fighters. They're always the loud ones and they're fighting. And it could be one person or it could be both partners in the relationship. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in being a fighter.
No.
There's no shame in being a flighter. The flighters are both very, very quiet. And typically the best combination is to have a fighter and a flighter together because they get the conversation going and they get it done. But when you get stressed, right, it's like you will find yourself either really leaning in to the conflict, maybe getting really assertive, sometimes aggressive in your communication, and really wanting to solve that. There's some beautiful strengths to that. The downsides obviously could be you could bulldoze people and run them over, and it can be scary.
Right.
Then the flighters, right? They're about when they get stressed, they're like, how do I get out of this? How do I quiet this down? What do I need to say to get him or her to shut up? And this is not according to gender. We see this across the board. It doesn't matter
True.
what gender you are. We'll see fighters or flighters in either of those. And then there's the freezers too, where they just they just freeze and they're quiet and they shut down. And those are obviously ones that are very quiet in their communication. So sometimes the fighters get a lot of pushback and a lot of shame because they're so vocal. And sometimes they can be aggressive in their communication. But the upside to them is if they learn how to harness that energy, they can be really productive in being able to get a good outcome in a difficult conversation.
It's true. They get a bad rap though.
They do.
But the couples who have no fighter and they're both just quiet and shut down, those are the ones that are scary because
it's true.
They tend to not make it because nobody's raising the white flag and calling things on the carpet.
Yeah, they're more about protecting themselves than they are about trying to solve the conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to jump into our little model teams. So TEAMS is our model, and it starts with T being time.
Mm-hmm.
Time meaning a couple of things. Setting an intentional time for the conversation. So many times conversations are, like I said, right before we're going to the bed, when we're getting ready in the morning for work, when we're in the car, so many bad timings to have a difficult conversation. So setting an intentional time where you're set up for success, but also with time is setting a time limit so that it's like, hey, can I have 30 minutes of your time at 7 p.m. after we put the baby down? And then, can I add another T?
Sure.
For topic?
Topic. Why not?
Yeah.
That's good. Time and topic.
Time and topic. It's very helpful to start that says, I know the time. We're going to meet at 7 p.m. for 30 minutes, and we're going to talk about the topic of finances or something. It's just, that is a way to start a difficult conversation on the right foot.
Yeah.
Anything else you have to say about?
I know, you nailed it.
T for time
and topic.
Time and topic.
Creative. I love it. Yeah, time and topic. You might need that. I think the topic piece is a good idea because sometimes there's different topics. Like I know for us,
you
we're
can get blindsided.
There are certain topics we do not talk about after 9:30 because it just never goes well. And we will find ourselves just really not performing well. And we don't even care. We're just like, just get this done and get this over with. And what's the 3 toppers? I think money, sex, and in-laws, right? So it's like, those are just kind of your pro tips on that. Difficult topics like that, family issues, intimacy, finance, usually children, parenting stuff. Yeah. Those are pretty loaded topics that you really want to make sure you're in your best place at. So you want to make sure you're fed, your basic needs are met, you're not exhausted, you're able to show up with your heart and your mind and your body.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
E.
Empathy. Well, we talked about this a little bit, and empathy is what we're finding is really the superpower for conflict to become resolved. It is something that we're still learning and practicing in our relationship and how to lead and start with empathy. It's really counterintuitive because you want to lead with your message. So instead of leading with your message, you're leading with empathy. So let's pick a topic. And as we go through these, we can be able to model how to use the empathy in the...
It's a great idea.
You have a topic?
Would you like to have a conversation at this time right now?
Sure.
Okay. Topic. What's a good topic we could talk about?
Well, what did we pick in graduate school? We always
exercise.
You picked exercise and I picked time. How to be on time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Those are both safe, but realistic.
Let's go exercise.
Okay.
Exercise is a good one. How to make good choices with your body and exercise, right?
That's good. And so if I was going to give empathy to you on that, I would say something like, hey, I understand that you're really wanting us to be consistent with our exercise, and it's difficult to you when you don't have a good partnership on that.
Well, let me think about this, because exercise, right, doesn't really affect you or me, right? But let's say we agreed on a food plan that we're going to do together and an exercise, a health plan. Let's say we
Okay.
agreed on that together, okay? And let's say one of us, you, are shirking the plan and I'm getting frustrated.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to come to you and I'm say, Jake, and I'm doing all the meal prep, but you're not doing the meal prep and you're not helping to make sure you're motivating us with the exercise. No, none of this has actually really happened. So this is easy for us to talk about because this is a non-issue really, right? But you'll get the point on this.
Right.
And we can do it without having to go to blows ourselves about something. So
Right. Because it's an example of if I was breaking an agreement.
Correct. So let's say
which is 99% of all marital conflict.
Correct. So on this one, it's a pretty benign topic, but you'll get the point on it. So the first thing I would say is, hey, is this a good time to talk about the fact that I'm struggling with our exercise plan that we both agree that we're going to do for the new year?
Right.
Yeah. And then you would say,
sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
How about during the podcast recording?
Sounds good. That sounds perfect. Is now a good time?
Yes.
Now's a good time.
Right
Great.
this moment.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate making some changes in the new year. This is the E, empathy. I can appreciate making the changes in the new year's is challenging and hard. So, and I know we kind of like some of our old habits, but this is really difficult for me to be able to be successful. But again, I can empathize that this is challenging for you. I kind of jumped the gun. I got out of empathy, but
I know
I should stay in empathy more.
I just had an idea.
Okay.
We're kind of shifting on the fly here, but why don't we go through the whole thing and then we could do the whole conversation and show them how we do TEAMS for the whole thing. So that way they know what we're doing when we do it.
Well, since we already started this way, I think this is what I would like to continue doing. So
should we go on to A then?
A.
Okay.
Correct.
So A is admit.
Mm-hmm.
So in this difficult conversation, it's going to go a lot farther if you take the time to admit your part.
Correct.
And take ownership of your part in the conflict or in the difficult situation.
Right.
And so
that would sound something like, and I admit I am struggling too to get going with the exercise and do the food plans and things that we talked about. I admit that I'm struggling too.
Right. And then it would sound for me like, hey, I admit that, yes, I did make this agreement at the beginning of the year that I would do that. And I just can't stay away from those Taco Bell burritos.
No, that is a true story.
And that's not on our food plan.
This is true.
And so I'm totally breaking our agreement. So I admit that. I am not keeping my word on that and not being a good health plan partner.
Right. Okay. That's great. And then the M is to mediate. And this is, what is it that we're trying to mediate? And what I'm trying to mediate is the fact that I'm wanting to work with you as a partner, but I'm struggling to do that because you're not showing the support that I need to be able to inspire me to feel like I have a really great partner that is showing up for this process.
Right.
And what do you have to mediate?
What I have to mediate is, do I need to change the plan so that I can actually honor it?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to, in some ways, make an amends, or, not only amend the plan, but like for me, mediating would be getting clarity on what we are agreeing to, so that
good.
we can both be successful.
That's good. Okay. So,
and then we would get to the S, which stands for solution. And, that's an important, sometimes we can have all these great conversations and then we just never get to a solution. We're just like, we air our dirty laundry. We have our emotion, our frustrations, our needs, but we never get to
the solution. Right. So a lot of times in the mediation process, and I was starting to say that, and then you move to the S, solution, but sometimes we have to really leave space to make sure we understand the other person. So I was trying to hear what it is that you were mediating, and it was actually really interesting to me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. You're needing to mediate why you're not doing this in yourself, like this internal conflict, why you're not showing up, and that you might possibly need to amend it.
Right.
So where I'm trying to mediate, are we going to be partners in this or not? Can I depend on you? Is this going to work? Right. So the solution, what is the solution on this and moving forward?
A good example of that would be, the solution is, we said no cheat days originally. I want to institute one cheat day a month or a week or whatever. And that way you're not frustrated with me that I'm eating my Taco Bell burritos. And not feeling like you don't have a partner or you're frustrated. And so that would be part of my mediation.
Oh, that's good. Okay, let me think about that. And what for the solution for me is like, well, I think I can get on board with that. If we have one cheat day a week where you get to eat your burritos, I get to eat whatever I want, and then we are working together to keep our meal plan and our exercise for the other 6 days, then yeah, I can get on board with that. I can be a partner with that.
Right. And part of the solution too could be like, if you were like, I'm needing more partnership with the meal prep or with those things, or with getting up in the morning to do our exercise or whatever else. And so, yeah. And the thing I will say about the solution part is, sometimes couples will come up with an excellent solution, but it'll be in a conversation like this where 3 weeks later, there's not an accurate memory of it.
Yeah.
Or one will say, remember we had that conversation 3 weeks ago and you agreed to have a cheat day or whatever, or you agreed to do the meal prep on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And the other partner goes, I don't remember that part of the conversation. And so one of the other tools that we insert here is this idea of making an agreement list that is associated with your solution that says, we agreed to blank, and you write that down. We do those kinds of things like in a shared note on your phone, which is kind of a cool thing. You could do it in a Google Doc, whatever those things where you can collaborate, where whatever's on your device is on the other person's device, so that you both have a reference. Not to shove it in each other's face, but just so that you have accurate recollection of it.
That's good.
So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not going, 3 weeks later we have the same conversation and then we're arguing about it or whatever, and we already solved it. But because we didn't write it down, we have no record of it.
Or we have to resolve it. And this time now we're more heated, and you said you would. No, you said you would. And Yeah, so that's another little caveat, that when you come up with a solution, is have a specific thing written down that says, okay, I'm agreeing to meal prep on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And we're going to have one cheat day. So that way you can go, what did we agree on? It's like, let's check our note. No, that's good. Especially since our memories, like you said, can sometimes just come across differently, or just because we're just different processors, we'll perceive it differently. So when you have it down in writing, there's no denying it. You can say, hey, this is what we agreed on.
Right. And you both can check it over and go, no, you didn't write that right. We were, and I always say, make it very specific. The other thing I'll add to the solution, sometimes you'll have a thing where, hey, I need the fence fixed. It's been, broken for 3 weeks. The dog keeps getting out. And so we have this difficult conversation about the broken fence. And then we agree that this weekend you're going to fix it. And or I'm going to hire it out, which, you just say those words to any guy that is halfway handy. And that's like,
it really works.
It really works.
Who's handy and thrifty.
Who's handy and thrifty, which I'm both. And so all Jen has to say is, I can hire it out. And it's like, okay, it'll be done tomorrow. So just a pro tip. If you ever feel that. But the reason I'm bringing that up is not just to tell myself, but to say deadlines and having dates. So sometimes writing not just the agreement that says, I agree to fix the fence, but I agree to fix the fence by next weekend, which is January, whatever, or, and that way, even that can be referenced.
Exactly. And then sometimes it's been really helpful because sometimes we've had those agreements and that hasn't always happened. And so we've had an agreement of what will happen if you don't do it.
Right. So if there's a strange guy in my backyard fixing our fence, I'll know why.
Right. Or if there's a couple $100 shopping spree on the credit card, you will know why. I'm going to go treat myself and do something for me. Right. So it's like we've had those agreements too. It's like if one of us is struggling to remember the commitment, different things,
the agreement,
the agreement, then there also gets to be a consequence for if the agreement isn't kept. And that's been a really wonderful thing that I learned to just like, okay, then I don't nag you. I'm like, you don't do it, I'm just going to pay somebody else and it's going to be done exactly the way I want and when I want.
Right.
Or if you don't do it, I get to go spend a couple $100 on doing something that I really want to do.
Yeah.
So.
And we like to have fun with the consequences, not just to be this punishment thing, but
correct.
Where, Jen gets a back rub if I don't keep my agreement, or, I make dinner, or I do her chores for the week, or I do her laundry, whatever it is, like there can be some fun things that, because it's difficult when there's agreements that we don't keep, with your spouse, and you just go, oh, sorry.
Correct.
That sorries get old.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, I'm getting a back rub out of the deal, and yeah, it's frustrating, but the back rub becomes kind of a deterrent for the person to keep, doing or breaking the agreement. And it's also kind of blessing the person who kind of didn't get their agreement kept.
Yeah. It's building the trust that got broken from the agreement that was made. Right. And it's saying, hey, I'm going to take responsibility that I broke this agreement, that I said I would be on time and I would come and do this. And instead I didn't. So therefore I told you I would make dinner for you. So I'm going to be doing that for you for tonight.
Exactly. So just in summary,
yes.
Teams, time, empathy,
admit, mediate,
and solution.
I will say in the mediate, that's where some of the emotion comes into, as far as what you're feeling, what you need. That again, we use kind of a benign topic. But obviously you can see this could be really heated on that M part. That's probably the most challenging. But after you've done the TEA, have a cup of tea, TEA. After you've done that.
After you have your cup of tea.
Yeah. You've really set a beautiful foundation to get to the M, which is what am I trying to mediate? What am I trying to personally mediate? And then what is the problem that I'm running into in partnering with you? How does that make me feel?
Right.
We didn't get into the emotion on that, but typically on topics that have a lot of heat to them, there's a lot of emotion. So you have to voice your emotion. Obviously, I feel statements. That's ideal.
Yeah. Feelings and needs. And that's where you really have to perfect the art of playing catch.
Yeah. The dialogue.
Yeah.
Good reminder.
Well, thanks for joining us once again. We love to chat about important topics and teaching you how to wear two crowns in the midst of all of this.
We got to leave them the crown jewel.
The crown jewel. Gosh, how could I forget the crown jewel? I mean, Your crown would be empty without it.
Right. That is, you both have to keep your crowns on to be able to have a difficult conversation. You can't check your power at the door. And that sounds like blaming, shaming, holding other people responsibility for your misbehavior or actions. Keeping your crown on means you hold on to your power, you hold on to your voice, you set boundaries, and you express yourself in a way that you would like to be heard.
Exactly. Yeah. Keeping your crown on is your responsibility. And when you come to these difficult conversations with your crown on, then it will be a 2-crown conversation.
Beautiful. Beautiful, hon. Good job.
Awesome.
All right.
How could I forget? Sorry for jumping the gun on that, but thanks again for joining us. And we hope you join us again. Share this with somebody who may benefit from it. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.